Good morning, YouTube family. Today is Tuesday, January 21st, and I'm making another video. This is video number 3. Before I start with a story about Iran, where I lived in Tehran, Iran, I would like to correct something on my last video, which was introducing myself. And I was talking about where I had lived and when I had lived as a child. And also as when I retired. And I was scooping those things from the recesses of my brain. And in view of the fact that my brain is 68 years old, I did not get some of these things correct. So today I would like to correct that timeline. So when I was born in 1957, my dad was sent to Germany. He was in the military, he was in the army, and he had to spend 2 years in the military. So for the first 2 years of my life, I did not know my dad, as I had mentioned in the previous video. But then he returned to the States and he got papers again to go to Iran. Okay, so I was pre-kindergarten. I was older than 2, younger than 4 or 5. So pre-kindergarten. I'm thinking that kindergarten starts at age 5. So I was 3 or 4 years old during the time that we spent in Iran. From Iran, I went to kindergarten in Kansas. So my dad had been sent to Kansas to do some military there. And from Kansas, we went to Fort Benning, Georgia, which was the technical location of the Army base. But my dad did not want us to live on the base, so we lived across the river in Fort Mitchell, Alabama. And in Fort Mitchell, Alabama, I went to 1st grade and 2nd grade. Then my dad got papers to go to Vietnam, so he wanted us to be close to family, and he moved us back to New Hampshire, back to his parents' farm. And that's where, when I enrolled in school, I'm not sure what the glitch was there, but I did not attend 3rd grade. And I was put into the 4th grade. So one of the situations that caused was when we were reviewing our multiplication tables in class, you know, that 2 times 2 equals 4, 7 times 7 equals 49. The teacher was very upset with me because I did not know my multiplication tables. Well, apparently you learn that in the 3rd grade. And I did not go to the 3rd grade. So I was behind the ball a little bit. Had to spend some time doing some studying at home, extra studying at home during the 4th grade to catch up to the level that the other children were already at. Another thing that I mentioned that was incorrect in my last video was when I retired. The year that I retired was in 2019. So that was 7 years ago already. My goodness. Time has flown by. I thought for sure that I had only been retired 3 or 4 years. But apparently it's been very enjoyable. Because time has gone by fast. So that brings me to the story of how in the world did I get to go to Iran before I even went to kindergarten. Well, this is kind of a story of how life comes full circle. Because I was watching the news the other day, and they were talking about all the trouble that Iran was having and the riots in the streets, and then the son of the Shah of Iran came on, and they were trying good bad evil. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to explain that, but they were trying to reinstate the Shah of Iran. Well, the original story of how I got to Iran and got to spend time over there was my dad was stationed over there because the Shah at the time was, they were trying to overthrow him and remove him from power. Well, 65 years later, the same thing is happening, only in the opposite direction. The Shah was in hiding or in protective custody, or obviously it's not the original Shah, it's his son. But now they're trying to place him back in power. And from me watching the news, that just brought up the story of Iran and how I was able to have my little self over in a completely different culture where we lived a very good life. We had a 3-bedroom ranch style house. It was brick. It was in a compound. It had tall brick walls with razor wire over the top of it. We had guards stationed on the outside. And when I say compound, this was we probably lived on a half an acre to an acre, because we had fruit trees inside the compound. We had an inside or in-ground swimming pool. We had a gardener. We had a housekeeper, and their house was on the property, so that they didn't have to go outside the property if they didn't want to. But we were inside the property under guards on the outside, if that tells you anything. At that time in 1960, whatever it was, when I was 3 years old, 1960, 61, Americans were not welcomed in Iran, and we had to be very, very careful. And when we went outside the compound, my mom and I had to dress in the Iranian, typical Iranian attire for women and young girls. And we were not to look at anybody in the eyes, because if they saw blue eyes, they would know that we were American. But we did go to the market. I remember the market. I also remember being able to ride a camel. My brother and I, they had camels somewhere downtown, and my brother and I were able to get on separate camels and have like a pony ride, which was very memorable to me. The camel spit at my brother, and I did not have that experience, but he was not real happy about the whole thing. Now, what took us from there was my dad was making breakfast one morning, and we had this little cylinder gas stove that was made for camping. and this is, like I said, just that's a sketchy memory. I can remember the stove, but I don't know why we didn't have a kitchen stove, and why my dad was trying to light this thing. Um, but as he was trying to light it, it blew up in his face, and it caught him on fire. My brother and I were outside, thankfully. We heard the explosion. We were sitting on the front steps and we heard the explosion. And the next thing we knew, my mom and my dad came out of the front door. My dad was in flames and he was trying to get to the pool. And then I just remember a bunch of men, soldiers, army friends and buddies coming in and getting him, wrapping him in a sheet, and taking him away in the Jeep. And then my next memory is we were on a big cargo airplane headed for Germany, obviously going to the burn center. But my mom also was burned, her hands up to her elbows, because she was, trying to assist my dad with getting the flames out, of course. So, long story short, Iran was beautiful in the fact that, we got to see the country, we got to experience new culture. But then, tragedy struck and my dad was injured very badly. Thankfully, he survived the flight to Germany, and they treated him there for my time. At this point, my time only goes to the next memory, which was him being flown to Texas, the Texas Burn Center, and my brother and I went to my grandparents, my paternal grandparents' farm, to stay for however long it took for my dad to get well. My dad did get well. He did return, and when he was well enough, he was stationed to Kansas, and that's where I went to kindergarten. When he left Kansas, we went to Georgia. I attended the first and second grade, and then he went to Vietnam, and we went to New Hampshire, and that's where I attended the fourth grade and finished the rest of my schooling. I did get married early at 17, and that's a completely different story, so stay tuned, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Be good.